This is day eight of the Obama administration's contempt of a federal court ruling. And why no state has not challenged this yet, I don't know. But they are working feverishly in the bureaucracy to institute a law that is now void. And by the way, the ignorance of the propagandist Gibbs, in saying, well, we have two judges who said it's okay and two, it doesn't work that way, as I've explained repeatedly. It's the judge who rules your actions unconstitutional who you have to listen to. That's why they sent their lawyers into that courtroom to try and win that case, because they didn't want to lose the case. Well, they did lose the case. And it appears, that I am the only one in this country with a microphone who is stunned and disgusted by this and isn't going to let it go. So day 8 of the Obama administration's contempt of court, contempt of the Constitution, and contempt of the American people. So the question should be asked, why do we have to follow the law if he doesn't? Seriously. By the way, I had another thought. This living and breathing Constitution stuff. Because these phony law professors with tenure out there, talking about how the Constitution has to adjust to modern times and so forth, which is basically a political expedient to impose on us their political agenda. My point to you is this. If the Constitution is living and breathing, and of course it's not, but let's just play around with this, then why isn't living and breathing in our direction? In other words, why is the Constitution stuck in the New Deal and the Great Society? It's living and breathing. Okay, great. Well, that means we can change it too, right? I'm just showing you how idiotic their argument is. It doesn't even make any sense. Wait a minute. So it changes with the times, but we're stuck with Franklin Roosevelt and Lyndon Johnson? We have to follow precedent of the Warren Court? No, we don't. The Constitution's living and breathing. Hey, anything goes, whatever we say. All right, let me move on. I just need to knock down the incoherence of the left. I didn't watch this interview of Obama before the Super Bowl for a multitude of reasons, including I don't care what he has to say. I don't care what he's asked. I have other things to do. But it's my understanding it was asked whether he's a socialist. And he responded in essence, no, come on. I've cut taxes. I haven't raised taxes at all. I just wish the interviewer, the 8 p.m.er, had actually done his homework and was actually prepared to respond to that, because he had to assume that that's what Obama would say, because that's what Obama always says. So if you're going to ask the question, be prepared with a backup question. So let me help him, and let me expose the president as the liar that he is. As a matter of fact, he's a serial liar. And we talked about this before when Obamacare was actually passed and the Americans for Tax Reform put out a statement last year. And our friends at CNSnews.com have reminded us. Let me tell you all the tax increases that Obama has put into the law. You ready? The individual mandate excise tax. The employer mandate excise tax. The small business 1099 information reporting, which is a tax if it's a cost. Surtax on investment income. Excise tax on comprehensive health insurance plans. A hike in the Medicare payroll tax. Medicine cabinet tax. HSA withdrawal tax hike. Flexible spending account cap, a.k.a. special needs kids tax. Tax on medical device manufacturers. Haircut for medical itemized deduction from 7.5% to 10% of AGI. Tax on indoor tanning services. The elimination of the tax deduction for employer-provided retirement drug coverage. Blue Cross Blue Shield tax hike. Excise tax on charitable hospitals. Tax on innovator drug companies. Tax on health insurers. And a biofuel black liquor tax hike. Now let's turn to the second part. That he lowered taxes. Obama's entire claim of being a net tax cutter rests merely on the temporary tax relief he signed into law. The tax increases Obama has signed into law have invariably been permanent. In fact, Obama signed into law $7 in permanent tax hikes for every $1 in permanent tax cuts. Over 90% of the dollar value of the tax cuts Obama signed into law are only temporary. 100% of the increases are permanent. The net tax hike under Obama so far, $618.7 billion. Now, is it too much to ask the 8 p.m.er to actually be prepared with the facts when he's asking a question? Obama's been raising taxes left and right, and I haven't even gotten to his other statutes. Look at the taxes and the EPA regulations they're putting out and the impact on the economy. And by the way, these tax cuts, they include what I call these welfare payments. That is, payments to individuals who don't pay taxes. It's spreading the wealth, if you get my drift. Then Obama gives this speech at the State of Confusion address. Remember? Of course you don't. It was a stupid speech, but I'll remind you. We got to really address this deficit, he said. So he is going to attack discretionary spending. He's going to freeze it not just for 3 years, like he said last year, 5 years. And I opened the paper today, and here's this report from Reuters. Vice President Joe Biden announced an ambitious $53 billion U.S. program to build new high-speed rail networks and make existing ones faster over the next 6 years. Excuse me? Ladies and gentlemen, we have a $1.5 trillion deficit this year. Not the debt. Just this year's deficit, which is added to the debt. The Republicans are proposing cutting $32 billion. Big whoop. In their pledge, they said they cut a lot more than that. More on that later. So while Obama's talking about cutting spending, he can't stop spending. And the doofus vice president, he's out there talking about it. Oh, and by the way, he says, I think I've ridden Amtrak back and forth from Washington to Wilmington 7,900 times. So what? What does that have to do with anything, you numbskull? Who cares how many times you ride the train? I mean, this is why we are where we are in this nation. Let me put it to you this way so we understand what we're talking about. These people have no boundaries. See what I'm saying? Since they have basically rejected the Constitution, and they believe whoever's in power has the power to pretty much spend whatever they want to spend on whatever they want to spend. There are no boundaries left. There are no limits. Cares what the states think, what people think. Elections are temporary. What the hell? We're going to keep building these massive monuments to ourselves. And the state is going to substitute its decisions for individual decisions. So we get everything from eat celery and carrots to $53 billion boondoggles. And there can be no end to it. None. Because there's no boundaries. For years, I have asked what I consider a seminal question on this program to liberals out there. And it is this. What are the limits to the government that you imagine? What are its limits? When do we know we've reached the threshold with you? And they may turn around and say, what about you? Well, our limits are spelled out in the Constitution. But for the individual, there are no limits. The sky's the limit, if you will. Because we don't seek to substitute political decisions for individual decisions. People make 1,000 decisions today. We don't seek to make those decisions for them. See the difference? So we get a $53 billion passenger rail system. Maybe we need a $25 billion coast-to-coast pedestrian trail system. Whatever comes into your head. Whatever comes into anybody's head. If it sounds cool, if it sounds good, put the word reform on it and go with it, baby. That's why liberalism, or as I've called it, statism, will destroy this nation. And is in fact destroying it from within. It's a cancer. It's a cancer that needs to be contained. This is why they reject the Constitution. This whole health care thing. As I've said from day one, this isn't about health care. This is about the final nail in the coffin of the Constitution. Through the back door, the Commerce Clause. You will spend your private money and buy a private contract with a private entity, or you will be punished. Now, a government that powerful is a government with no limits whatsoever. Now, ask yourself something. We have lawmakers, right? Ask any lawmaker, how many laws do we have? They don't know. You know what's funny? Nobody knows. Because now we have so many entities making laws that aren't even in Congress. We don't even know what laws they're making, but we know there's a zillion of them, and you have to comply with them. How can you comply with them when you don't even know what they are? And I'm just talking at the federal level. Wait until you throw the state and localities in, too. So we have lawmakers who don't read the laws and don't know how many laws there are. And yet they keep passing laws. Going back to the point I made earlier. They want to substitute state decisions, that is, governmental decisions, for individual decisions. If you hear anybody say this, you know where you heard it first. I've been giving a lot of thought to this, trying to work out who these people are and what they're up to. And so, of course, Michelle Obama is there, talking about what restaurant menus must look like, the size, the portion of the food that they should feed you. What should and shouldn't go in vending machines? What kind of bake sales we can have at our schools? Substituting her desires and decisions for ours. What's the limit? Well, there is no limit. Think about all the things you do every day, all the decisions you make. Now, let me make this as clear as I know how, and I thought I did it in Liberty and Tyranny. We are not a constitutional republic anymore. We're not. We're not a federal republic anymore because the states, except in very limited areas, and you can see they're trying to fight to hold on to what little power they have left, the states are essentially administrative bodies now. So what are we? We're a growing soft tyranny. That's what we are. You may feel you're as free as a bird. I'm not saying that we're a hard tyranny. I said a growing soft tyranny because it's still gradually developing. Well, you go see if you can purchase the kind of shower head that you want, the kind of toilet that you want. If you're extremely ill and the FDA is working on whether or not to approve a particular drug and you really feel you need it for your own survival, see if you can get it. And I can go through a host of other things. See if you can cut down a tree in your backyard, or what the rules are if you try and add on to your home. Take a look at your appliances in your home and look at the official government stamp of approval, because if you don't get that, you can't purchase it, and on and on. We'll be right back. You know, I'm going to tell you something. If we can afford a $53 billion rail system today, after all that's gone before, and all the deficits and all the dangers, and even Robert Rubin saying all of this is unsustainable, then we can afford today, right now, a massive, across-the-board federal income tax cut. We'll be right back. I want to develop this point a little bit further. And use it with your friends and family and coworkers. It's important. You see, racism can never be ended in America. It just can't. Because if there's one bigot out there, the left will insist that it's a bigoted, racist nation. Even though people of all backgrounds and colors and religions are pouring over our border. So we're a racist society in their eyes, that is, the eyes of the left, no matter what. No matter what, we discriminate against women in this country. Because if there's a man and a woman holding the same job and there's disparate pay, well, then we're a sexist nation, period. Racist, sexist. If there's one poor person in this country, well, then we're a country that tolerates poverty. If there's one person without health care, then we're a nation that tolerates people not being covered by health care. You see the point? The point is no society is perfect, although ours is the most perfect. It can't be perfect. Humans aren't perfect. No system is perfect. But some systems are more humane than others. Some systems are more compassionate than others. And that would be our system. But for the left, they look at any opportunity, any gap, any imperfection to demand a transformation of this society. This is why I believe Liberty and Tyranny did so well, because I explain it in great detail, but I'm trying to be very concise about it right now, because I've been giving it a lot more thought. And so we have these ridiculous, asinine, and yet endless efforts to manage the most minor details of our lives. And a government that has the power to manage the most minor details of our lives has the power to manage the big parts of it, too. That's the problem.